Welcome, everybody, to the NFL Draft Geek Show. I'm Brian Johannes, and this is a new thing that we're going to do here at NFLDraftGeek.com. Every single Sunday, Monday today, since we had the LSU game, I'm going to hit you up with a kind of a highlight show, but instead of just being a college football show, it's going to be a weekly NFL Draft Geek recap show. As you'll see as we go through, put in some highlights, highlight the key prospects. I got a list of guys that notable players that have gone through this past week and had success, or even some failings. So I kind of hit on those top guys as we go through the season. I'll hit up guys that are rising, guys that may be falling, and just kind of hit on these big time players as we go through this whole process of the NFL draft. Because we know here at NFLDraftGeek.com, this is not a let's wait till college football season's over before we get started. This is a year-round venture, and we're going to be with you all the steps along the way. So let's not waste any more time, and let's hit up on those Thursday games. Thursday, the big matchup was Northwestern versus Purdue. And to be honest, the star of the show in that game was Rondale Moore. He's a freshman receiver for the Purdue Boilermakers. It just kind of went off. Explosive playmaker. Purdue is going to showcase this guy, and so he's definitely a name to watch for in 3 years. But talking about the prospects today, the two guys to really kind of keep an eye on were Patty Fisher, the linebacker for Northwestern, Clayton Thorson, the quarterback, and even Purdue had Lorenzo Neal, a defensive tackle. Clayton Thorson was 16 for 26. He had 172 yards. He's coming back from that ACL injury in the bowl game. He kind of rotated with Trent Green's son. He looked all right. He didn't look fantastic. He didn't look like that first round prospect that you've seen him get mocked to quite a bit. But he looked solid. He looked better than anticipated. He's always going to be good throwing the ball short, and that continued here. As for Patty Fisher, he had 8 tackles in that game. It just, continues to look like a smooth, athletic linebacker. I know gets labeled as maybe one of the best linebackers in college football. He's gotten a lot of hype out there in the draft media. He's only a redshirt sophomore. So, it's one of those things. You go to Northwestern, you're there for academics. Is this going to be something that he's going to be coming out early? I don't know. But he's definitely someone to keep an eye on just because, even if he doesn't come out, he's a fun player to watch. Lorenzo Neal was the other prospect. He had 4 tackles, but most notably, he was the guy that cost Purdue the game. He had that late hit on the Northwestern running back on third down, would have caused Purdue to get a last shot. Not a good move for him. All right, let's move on to Friday. Friday, we had a couple games. Oklahoma State was in action, and I'm a big Justice Hill fan. Justice Hill, their running back, such an explosive playmaker, and he really showcased that against Missouri State. Not like is the best competition in the world, but he had 122 yards, a touchdown. Just showed off that explosiveness. He catch that corner, catch a crease, and just really explode out there into the open field and get those chunk yardage. All right, Stanford versus San Diego State was probably the best game of that night, and it was the J.J. Arcega-Whiteside show. 6 catches, 226 yards, 3 touchdowns. Arcega-Whiteside was balling. He's a big guy, 6'3", 225 pounds, and he plays like he's playing basketball out there. And there was a couple touchdowns he had, one where he just boxed out the defender, just boxed him out, went up and made the catch like he was going up for a rebound. You see some Mike Evans comparisons. I even saw out there that people were saying that he's an upgrade over Mike Evans. Don't see that, but he's definitely someone to keep an eye on. Contested catcher, can high point that ball. He can make difficult catches, good catching radius. So he's definitely a player to kind of keep an eye on. All right, let's move into Saturday, the bulk of the action. Lots of prospects going. It's the first, true Saturday of college football season. And the first game that you keep an eye on was that Ohio State-Oregon State game, the battle of the OSUs. And the thing that really stood out to me in this game was the defense of Ohio State. You guys like Nick Bosa and Draymond Jones, each of them had 2 sacks. Bosa was the guy that really stood out. He's showing why everyone thinks he might be the best player in this class. Speed around that edge, bending around the corner. Heck, he even had a fumble recovery for a touchdown, where one of his teammates knocked the ball out right along the goal line. He just picked it up, fell into the end zone for a touchdown. So definitely, for them, routing, they put up 73 points in that game. Dwayne Haskins looked good. Mike Weber had some nice runs. So definitely a good showing for Ohio State. Moving on, Oklahoma versus Florida Atlantic. This is a game that I was really looking forward to. I highlighted it in our college football scouting guide. I was really thinking that, I didn't think that Florida Atlantic was going to pull off the upset, but I thought it was going to be a good game. It wasn't. 63-14. The Sooners routed them. Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown, a guy that I'm a big fan of. He had 6 catches for 133 yards and a touchdown. Just such an explosive playmaker down the field. Just sprint, just explosive speed and able to track the ball well. So definitely a player to kind of keep an eye on as a junior. Rodney Anderson is another one of the best running backs in the league. 5 carries, 100 yards, 2 touchdowns. Just such explosive, good cutting ability. He can hit top speed. He can maneuver through that traffic. So he's definitely a player. I have him as my 3rd rated running back, and he could easily be the first running back taken in the draft if he declares. Probably one of the most anticipated games was Michigan versus Notre Dame. I was super excited to see Shay Patterson, the former Ole Miss transfer, the guy that I have as my number 1 quarterback prospect in this class so far. I might have been a little too not overboard, but too all in on him. Not saying that I'm not jumping off the board. Don't get me wrong, but here's a guy that I was really anticipating and can't wait to see him. And he was 20 for 30. 67% completion rate, 227 yards, 1 interception. That Michigan offense was just not running right. I'm not ready to throw in the towel on Patterson. I've cooled on him a little bit, but I just want to kind of continue to see him in this offense. Just because I always thought that playing with Harbaugh, playing with this pro style offense was definitely going to help him out. His teammate on the defense, Devon Bush, was having a great game. He's showing up there. You're seeing people online, especially a couple former NFL scouts, really pointing out his ability. And then he had to leave it in the second quarter with the right calf injury. They're calling it cramping. He came back for a little bit during the third quarter, but then left again. So Devon Bush, 3rd-rated linebacker in this class for me, 4th-rated. Really curious to see him because he is definitely a dynamic playmaker. Moving on, we had Tennessee play the West Virginia, and this was an all-out throttle job by the Mountaineers. They won 40-14. Will Grier was the star of the show, 25 for 34, 429 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Out of all the quarterbacks, the Will Griers, the Drew Locks, the Justin Herberts, the Shea Pattersons, Will Grier had the best game. He played the best competition. I mean, I guess Notre Dame's better than Tennessee. But, for the fact that he did that, he was a stud. And, he's saying, hey, look at me for the Heisman. But also, look at me for this top quarterback in this class. We just saw Baker Mayfield go number 1. Hey, Will Grier could definitely be a guy that kind of, could see that rise up there. David Sills is his top-rated target. He had 7 catches for 140 yards, 2 touchdowns. So he's continuing to show that he's a receiver that you need to keep an eye on this season. Mentioning one of those quarterbacks, Justin Herbert from Oregon, they played Bowling Green. They won 58-24. The big thing was he threw for 5 touchdowns, and he had some nice throws. There was one of those he had a cannon, just threaded the needle on a deep throw into the middle of the end zone. But, he only completed 10 of 21 passes. 281 yards. He had 2 interceptions, too. He had a 41-yard rushing touchdown. So you kind of got to see the good and the bad. He had those touchdowns. The on and off. A lot of people have him as their number one quarterback, and he's got a lot of tools. But that consistency is definitely something to kind of keep an eye on. Moving on, we had Ole Miss play Texas Tech. Ole Miss has got a lot of good receivers. DK Metcalf is getting a lot of attention this year. A.J. Brown's another guy that some people have had as their number one overall wide receiver. They won 47-27. Nice statement win. And I know Texas Tech isn't that great, but the fact that they were able to go out and just throttle a team that has always seemed to people like. And all three, and their top receivers all had big games. You had DK Metcalf, 4 catches for 81 yards. He had a 58-yard touchdown pass right off the bat that really got people talking. Big-bodied receiver, go up and win at the catch point. A.J. Brown, 7 catches for 93 yards and a touchdown. I've often seen him as kind of an Anquan Bolden type slot receiver, a guy that's going to work the middle, physical guy, can go up and make good catches. And then DeMarcus Lodge also had 6 catches for 96 yards. So those 3 guys, 3 good wide receivers, all split in time there. All right, another one quarterback, I didn't mention him early, was Ryan Finley from North Carolina State, with Bradley Chubb and Katavius Street and B.J. Hill and Justin Jones, all those guys leaving the NC State. They're looking for this offense to kind of pick up the pace, and Finley kind of struggled. He was 29 for 43, 309 yards, 2 touchdowns. They only won 24-13 over James Madison, and I know James Madison is good, don't get me wrong, but here's a guy who some are talking about as a late first-round pick. And you got to play better than that, even if it is one of the best FCS schools. He's got a receiver there that I'm a huge fan of, Kelvin Harmon, a 6'3", 215-pound receiver. I've heard some crazy Julio Jones comparisons. I don't see it, but I really like Kelvin Harmon. He was kept in check, 4 catches, 33 yards. Not the big game that you would have really hoped. Speaking of big games, how about Ed Oliver? He's already declared for the draft. Junior out of Houston, already declared. Said I'm coming out of my junior year. He didn't disappoint. Yes, it was Rice. Yes, they won 45-27. But here's a guy who had 13 tackles for a defensive tackle. 13 tackles, 3.5 tackles for loss. He had 2 quarterback hurries. Ed Oliver dominated this game. He is definitely making claim. If he can continue this up, it's going to be hard not to take Ed Oliver number 1, especially if these quarterbacks continue to kind of struggle. The aforementioned Drew Lock, they won 51-14 over UT Martin, University of Tennessee Martin. He was 19 for 25, 289 yards, 4 touchdowns. Pretty clean game for him. And he's going to be that big-time thrower down the field. I compared him a lot to Josh Allen. Big arm, push it down the field. Not the best accurate of thrower, but definitely a guy to kind of keep an eye on. A lot of people love his arm strength, but he's got that low completion percentage. Didn't show it here. He didn't need it. He only had 6 passes that fell to the ground, and he threw 25 of them. So pretty impressive there for Drew Lock. Last one on Friday night or Saturday night that I'm going to talk about is N'Keal Harry. He's definitely one of my favorite receivers in this class, if not my favorite. 6 catches, 140 yards, 2 touchdowns in their 49-7 win over University of Texas San Antonio. Just kind of, big receiver, quick, explosive. He had a nice catch on a short route where he didn't have anything, and he cut it all the way across the field and ended up scoring for a touchdown, just showing his playmaking ability. And a guy his size, he can win downfield, he can make contested catches. He's a better route runner than most of the people in his shoes, his size and his explosive ability. Here's a guy I think is going to be a top 10 pick in next year's draft. He continues this up. All right, last one before we wrap up is tonight's game. I'm recording this late Sunday night. We just saw LSU just dismantle Miami. You know, Miami was the top 10 rated team and supposedly, you know, going to be pushing to win that ACC against Clemson. And LSU just dominated this game. And a big part of it was their defense. Devon White, you know, a guy that I absolutely love. You know, he was just all over the place, showing his ability. But the big story is Miami struggles. Their defense, you know, you got guys like Joe Jackson and Shaq Quarterman and you know, Jaquan Johnson and Michael Joseph and all those guys, and they struggled. They struggled against, you know, an LSU team that's not known for their offense lately. So, and they were able to just shut them down. So, and Joe Burrow looked like a guy that they're pretty happy to get out of Ohio State. And, you know, I'm not saying he's going to be a guy to kind of really watch out for the early rounds, but he's definitely making his claim that he's a quarterback to kind of keep an eye on and see his development. Also, at this point, Amon Richards, one catch for 9 yards. You know, he's another guy, one of these top receivers that a lot of people are talking about. Just didn't have the best game, and you're hoping to bounce back. You get good quarterback play. They had a lot of issues, but definitely someone that you're kind of hoping is going to have a better game moving forward. Well, that's going to wrap it up. I hope you like this. It's going to be an audio version and the video version. The video version has highlights that are in it. If you've watched this now, you've heard it. If you hear this on the podcast, check out the video version on YouTube at NFLDraftGeek.com. And that's going to be definitely a place to watch it. I hope you guys enjoy these. The best way to get them is to subscribe to me on YouTube. Subscribe on iTunes, SoundCloud, or Stitcher, wherever you're listening to it. And if you're listening to the podcast, check out the video. If you're listening to the video, make sure you're subscribed to the podcast because I do more than just these on the podcast. Make sure you follow me at draft_Brian at NFL Draft Geek. Make sure you hit up NFLDraftGeek.com on a daily basis for all your draft needs. I hope you guys enjoy this. Let me know what you think. Thanks for listening.